Okay, we're ready for another test here. A recent scene of mine where I was applying some Brilliance fast drying. Not so fast drying on the foil, but possible to dry on the foil ink. I was able to apply it with a cotton ball to get some extra tone. And I didn't know if it would adhere to the surface, but in a tapping motion, it did apply to the surface just fine. I think that if I tried to apply it with kind of more of a stroke like that, it would just wipe right off the surface like that. Applying ink on this type of mirrored surface is almost like trying to apply ink on top of glass or something like that, because it is so non-porous. It's probably a little bit more porous than glass, but it's really similar in terms of, for all practical purposes. Okay, but that being said, I was going to try for a northern light type of curtainy type of lighting effect in here, and let's see how that goes. I think I can apply ink down like that, but it's going to be real blobby, but I think through a kind of a removal process and streaking color ink off of the page, I'm wondering if I can achieve those kind of curtainy types of, I don't know, columns of light that are kind of indicative of, northern light type of, I don't know, visual, okay? So let's try to get some ink down like this. Yeah, see, if I just go like this, it just looks like I'm wiping like oil or something on the surface right here. It's really hard for me to show you what I'm doing on such a mirrored surface. It's getting the reflection of the camera in here and whatnot, but we'll see what we can do here. But basically, I am going to be applying quite a thick amount of ink. Can you see that right there? And I don't know if it looks like it to you, but this is black Brilliance right here. It's not going to dry on me at all in the time that I'm doing this video, if anything. And it will. It'll dry in like a week or two where I am. If you're out in a very arid location, it might dry overnight or something like that for you. At least dry to the touch, but I do think that it'll take a decent amount of time to dry, but, I don't know. It dries faster than like an oil paint or something like that. So not for the immediate type of result at all. Like if you want to send this out to someone as a card, I wouldn't recommend the foil unless you're doing something like embossing or maybe using something like like a StazOn, maybe. I need to experiment with the StazOn pigment ink sometime. I haven't used this one. It's still in its package right here, so still need to experiment around a lot with the different media that I've purchased fairly recently. Recent for me. I have some pads that I sat around for, I don't know, like a decade before I got around to using it. I don't know if, well, I do know that you are like me. Because you're a stamper, there's probably some media and surfaces and stamps that you've purchased and, maybe have never used. They've just been kind of sitting around, but I will get around to using that StazOn pigment ink here before too long. I want to test it out. Okay, so with something like this, I can go for some columns of light if I was using like white, but I can't use it with black, okay? The two would just never mix. It would just, I'd be blending one in with the other because it would just be sopping wet on the surface. Okay, so when I'm going for these little columns eventually, see how blobby that is? It's not a smooth application whatsoever, but I'm just trying to get some ink down, and I'll kind of think about the light streaks afterwards. I just want to have enough media so that I can kind of streak into it. I'm going to be removing quite a bit of ink when I'm doing that. Alright, so this is I don't think I mentioned it, this is 100% cotton ball. and I find that that's the best material, kind of in my brief experience working with cotton balls, that those work the best. In fact, I don't know, the synthetics for me don't work at all, as a matter of fact. They just don't absorb enough moisture and transfer moisture, okay? Just a synthetic thing like a poly just really isn't designed to do that. Synthetics often wick moisture, meaning they kind of repel it, so you not only don't absorb it with that type of thing, but I don't know, it just makes it really hard. I don't know if you've, it's just like anything. It's just like the difference between, a cotton bath towel or something like that and kind of a synthetic. When you get those synthetics, especially when they're brand new, it doesn't seem like it's, getting you dry too much because it's kind of repelling the moisture away. That's why kind of in winter hiking or something like that, in the old days people used to use wool, and that's kind of coming back around, but for the most part it's polyesters because there's a saying that cotton kills, because it retains your moisture, and, you're much more likely to get hypothermia from using kind of those natural fibers like that. Well, like especially like cotton. Okay, so I'm really kind of building this up like that, and I'm applying more than what I normally would. There we go. We can see it a little bit like that. Okay. Now I don't do the kind of the below area because I want to stamp in an image like that. That's why I kind of keep my area. I don't know, not colored in, even though kind of having it come up from the bottom and having this kind of curtainy type of thing in the sky is really more realistic in terms of the shape and gesture of Northern Lights. It's kind of hanging up in the sky, but I kind of just overall have this kind of horizon glow, and that's because of that the aspect of having your image show. If it's kind of black behind this image, we're not going to be able to see the silhouette of the trees as much, or whatever image we stamp on there. Okay, so here's my real test right here. Okay, I'm going to take a paper towel into the dry area, and I'm going to streak it up that way, but I won't be going like straight line. I'll be doing more of like a swipe like that, okay? So that I get this kind of tapered, type of a streak in there. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Now when this starts getting black, I need to maybe switch off to a clean spot, okay? And I really have no idea how much pressure to put down on this. Okay, so I'm trying to create this stronger and stronger pillar, but maybe I need to switch off to a clean part so I don't just streak up there and then take that smudgy, oily residue and then streak it right up there. So kind of just kind of do it accordingly. You just kind of have to feel how much you're, kind of removing. All right. So I'm just kind of turning this, twisting it around, and I'll switch to clean, again. Let's see if you can see what's happening here. See this it's kind of curtainy right here. See, it's kind of like a flame type of thing. So I'm trying to really extend those areas out. Okay, I'm getting a little smudge there from going up here and then touching right back there. So just switch off to a clean area again. You almost see it almost like you're kind of whisking, with a broom or something like that. Media off the surface, okay? That's kind of the spirit of it, at least, okay? Not like a push broom, but like a whisk broom. Just imagine you're kind of whisking it off. Okay. Almost looks like the look of it, or visual feel, I guess, texture, it reminds me of like like wiping off soot or something like that off the surface. It is kind of that oily looking sooty type of thing. See that right there? Let's see if I can. Well, that has my reflection like that. Let me see if I can show you. Can you see that right there? I kind of want that interior column to be a little bit more prominent, but I think it looks okay like that. I'm kind of just wiping off down here because it got really kind of oily down here, like a residue. Not that you have to. Okay, so I have those columns there, all right? So I can see what kind of developed there now. Boy, it's really hard to give you the gist of what's happening here. I want to go with a little bit more of a kind of a solid application in the areas where I don't have the streaks now, that I know where they are. Okay. Now, I do feel like there's a little bit of resistance with each tap like that. It's not going on like, like a matte piece of paper. It's kind of, what's the word? It's kind of not pilling, but beading. That's the word I'm kind of looking for. I think it's kind of beading on a very, I don't know if it's a microscopic level, but a little bit. Okay, so see that right there? It's kind of interesting look to me. It's even almost hard for me to see, too, kind of what's happening here. It is so mirrored. It is really cool looking, though. Okay, here we go. See that right there? That's the way it looks. Okay, now let's try something here. I don't think I want to take a white paint pen and add my stars in like that. Okay? I just think that I've really built up a lot of that ink on there, and with the paint pen I think it would go up into the barrel like that. I mean, I can just constantly keep it flowing like that, but I just think it's going to be easier with the bleed proof white, to get some stars up here. And when I was doing this, in theory, I was thinking, okay, getting this is just going to be one thing, but I could just picture us. I think we're really going to need some additional texture in here, because that's really going to be hard for someone to see without a little bit of extra texture. Now, we could make it like snow, and I could stamp this down like that, and then splatter paint over the front of it, but the splatter paint is going to be in front of this, which would be a little bit more indicative of like snowfall or something like that, okay? If I stamp it ahead of time and then stamp this over the top of it, I think it would look maybe a little bit more like stars and maybe reflections of the stars if I stamp this up high enough, because you'd see some little dots down in here. We're going to get some dots down in the rocky area, it's just inevitable. But I just think my preference will be to splatter paint pre-impression, okay? So let's see how it goes, I don't know, it's one of those things. These scenes aren't precious. I don't know. I say that in terms of not being, feeling good about experimenting with them. It could be precious to you, you know what I mean, in terms of the end result or whatnot, but I don't look at anything as kind of being not permitting experimentation. I can see if you've spent 8 hours on some kind of like, full page 8.5 by 11 scene, you're working, you've already laid down, what are 20 layers of colors and everything like that, not wanting to kind of, roll the dice or something like that on that. But on something like this, this is what, 10, 15 minutes into a little card like this. It's a complete experiment. You're doing it with the spirit of experimentation, I say, to just kind of go for it. Okay, so Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof Light loaded into a old toothbrush, and we'll splatter paint this on, okay? How much you add is just kind of up to you. I'm doing this, it's probably about 5 inches away. I'm kind of off to the side so I don't drip onto my paper potentially. Kind of get a feel for what direction the splatter paint is going onto the scene. Today I have a pretty decent level of control. I don't always. Sometimes I splatter paint this one. It's going, I don't know, it seems like it's going the opposite way of where I thought it would go. Okay, so that's in the sky right there. Let me hold this up so you can see. Okay. There you go. Having a hard time focusing because it's like focusing on a mirror. And let me get a little bit down here, which will represent a little bit of starry reflections in the water. Okay, I get this thing. Now it's like I'm applying this and it's splattering backwards, I'm just kind of letting like one or two bristles go at a time, okay? And then I just kind of, I don't just keep going down this thing. I kind of just go couple, 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 like bristles at a time. Like that, and I get a pretty good level of control over that splattering. All right, now let's see how that impression will look. And I'll just use the Lakeside Cove large stamp. You can use whatever stamp you want in here. I'm going for something kind of bold against this, because it's just, it's kind of a bold, dark background, so I need something that's going to be fairly solid. Oh boy. I really need to re-ink. Do you find that too? Your Brilliance inks, in terms of making your impressions on here? I have to apply a lot of ink. Seems like every time I use it. I know you think this would get kind of oversaturated and whatnot, but I don't know. It hasn't so far. And sometimes when I ink these up, the ink is just so thick. I just think, man, is that filling up all of my detail in the pad, in the stamp? But I don't know. It doesn't seem to. Okay, so re-ink there. One of the things with my Lakeside Cove large, sometimes I don't color in this bottom area. I don't want such a harsh line either. I think it's going to be stamped below that, but what I'll do is I'll just kind of blot it off like this. This is your standard stamping technique right here. We don't always think to kind of wipe off areas where we don't want it to be so prominent. But if you just kind of wipe it off, stamp can't be prominent where it doesn't have, very much ink, right? Because it's going to stamp out much lighter as a result of having less ink. All right, now here's what I don't like about these cards. You can see how it's kind of bowed like that, so I'll just kind of press it down like that. Because if I press it down like this, it's going to be hitting here first, and it's going to be kind of squashing out sometime. I did kind of counter bow it to begin with, but my pre-cut, pieces are, they tend to bow a little bit, when it comes to this foil. Okay, so I'm hoping that this stamps out. I've had pretty good luck with the impressions on this foil, using the Brilliance. In fact, sometimes I'm probably applying, too much pressure, or for a period longer than really what's necessary. But I don't know. I'm always worried that it's not going to stamp out. It's just kind of weird stamping on such a smooth, non-porous surface. Yeah, I don't know. It stamped out just fine. It almost stamps out better than on some surfaces like that. But look at that. It's kind of interesting. See, when I was trying to show you those streaky things just like this, it's it's kind of hard to read, but then when you get something next to it that's kind of stronger in value, it's dark against that. Now you can really see the streaks. I don't know why. It's just kind of contrast by, or visuals by contrast. I don't know. Okay, so, I mean, I could take, there's a little bit of space on each side there. I could take this and stamp it like that and like that on each side, but I'm just going to take a little bit of extra ink here. Think about like so, and just kind of fill that in like that. Interesting. It's like this is really applying very nicely right here. I don't know why. Did it go on that thick originally up here? I don't remember. I think I'm going to kind of apply a little bit on this corner right here too. Just to kind of frame it off a little bit, I am darkening up some of those little dots that were, you know, kind of happened with the splatter paint, but that's okay. Alright, so... let's go ahead. I wasn't going to do this. I thought maybe that's low enough to where I don't need any foreground. Let's go ahead and put in some of these reeds right here. Might as well. I already have the stamp out. Be careful that you don't kind of skew the image. I felt a little bit of a slide when I was stamping that last branch. When you're stamping wet into over the top of wet, it gets a little bit, you know, squirrely on you. When you touch down like that, it can move a little bit. So just be careful about that kind of aspect there. All right, so I have some fingerprints of mine kind of right in there where I've been touching, but I can kind of wipe that away a little bit. But I don't know. It's an interesting look. Let's do something here. We really need some kind of visual up here that's a little bit bolder. Okay, let me see if I can also get some of those fingerprints out of there. I need a clean paper towel, I think. I think I've used this one up here. Let me get another paper towel. I need a dry piece of material here just to kind of... Now, I don't want to get another fingerprint down here while I'm holding, so I'll just kind of be careful about that. Okay, let's see. All right, there we go. That is still very, very wet, so just be careful about that. Okay, so here is my white paint pen. This is a Miaosun. Miaosun. White paint pen. Let me put the cap on when I'm shaking this up. A silver pen on here might be interesting too, huh? Let's see if we can add a little bit of a extra little visual here, okay? So I'll just go with a few dots. I don't know if I would have wanted to do this over the whole scene like I did with that splatter painting, but you know, a couple little kind of larger little visuals like that might be kind of nice. And you can come down here into the, you know, your lighter areas as well. Okay. Actually, I think that looks pretty good. You might need a decent amount of them. I think it's really kind of improving the overall look. Okay. I wonder, let's see if I can add some highlights down here. The scene is really dark, so I'll put just a few little highlights on these rocks right in here. It really stands out quite a bit depending on what angle you're viewing this at, but yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Now, I don't know, one of those things if you kind of waited for this to dry and put like a little crystal on here, like one of these types of crystals, I think that would be kind of interesting up there as an additional effect. But overall, I don't know. I think there's potential here. I don't know what I feel about this original test piece right here. But I think, I don't know, I think there's other potential in here, like an overhanging branch or something like that. Stamped in silver, I think, onto the scene would be really interesting. I don't know how it will stamp over the top of black, though. It might just apply down and it just comes right off, as opposed to transferring that ink over. But that'll be for future test videos on this type of look right here. Those kind of streaky, kind of negative space black streaks in there, we might be able to do something like clouds or something like that, how I'm usually applying white on to kind of a darker scene. We can use the opposite and put that negative space in there with black and get, kind of cloud formations down here as well. So I think there's different things like that that we can do. But on this one right here, I just wanted to see if I can get those kind of curtainy styles of streaks in there. Let me see if I can reflect some of this. Let me see if I can reflect. Okay, so here we go. I'll reflect some kind of white back into that, and you can kind of see what's going on a little bit better, like that. It's kind of cool like that, huh? This is where, my ceiling is being reflected, and it's really dark up there, but you can kind of see what the scene looks like a little bit more with this paper here, being reflected in there, okay? So anyways, a little experiment there for you. Maybe you can kind of expand on this type of idea and, I don't know, bring some different looks into it or different techniques and whatnot. If you do, drop me a note in the comment section. Let me know what came about from it. Okay, so anyways, fun stuff experimenting in the... Oh, okay, here's a pretty good angle right here. It's been fun in the stamping lab here. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.